দর্শক আমাদের সাথে যুক্ত হয়েছেন অ্যাসেম্বলিম্যান জোহরান মামদানি আমাদের সাথে আছেন জোহরান মামদানি ওয়েলকাম টু দ্য শো and did you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you so much. I mean, I'm sorry to hear that you were arrested. Could you please tell us what is the reason to be arrested?
So I was arrested on Friday evening at about 8 p.m. and I was arrested because I joined more than 1,000 Jewish New Yorkers who were calling for the Senator Chuck Schumer to publicly support a ceasefire in this moment. And they were calling for the end to an impending genocide. And as more than 1,000 Jewish New Yorkers came outside of Senator Schumer's home and then marched on the streets, the police arrested more than 50 of us for blocking traffic in that area.
So they gave a ticket for blocking the traffic?
They gave me 2 tickets for disorderly conduct. I will have to report to the court on November 1st. But this is but a small inconvenience compared to what is going on in Gaza. I mean, we have seen more than 2,200 Palestinians killed since last Saturday. More than 700 of them are children. And we have elected officials in this country openly supporting a call for genocide. And we have the White House actively opposing any calls for a ceasefire. So now is the moment for every single New Yorker of conscience to stand up, speak up, and say that Palestinian lives have the same worth as any other life in this world. They must be protected. We must do everything in our power to ensure that they are not going to be killed by an Israeli military that describes them as human animals.
Yeah, so our question is, you are a politician, you are lawmakers, the American lawmakers, state lawmakers, the federal lawmakers, Congress, Senate, everyone, including the president, they are supporting Israel, blindly. They gave blind support to Israel instead of like 76 years, oppression and the colonial, aggression by Israel, what the other people describe. So you are a politician as well. What do you think about the American politician? Why they are so blind about one side?
I think that for many of them, they simply don't even think of Palestinians. Look at our Governor Kathy Hochul.
Yeah.
When she was asked by a reporter what she would say to Palestinian Americans fearful of their loved ones in Gaza, her first words were to say, "I call on law-abiding Palestinians to condemn Hamas." She couldn't even say that she empathized with New Yorkers, her own constituents, who were afraid that their family members were going to be killed. She had never even thought of that question before that reporter said it. And that is indicative of the fact that for so many politicians in this country, Palestinian life is but a statistic to watch the numbers go up every day as more and more of them are killed. And once it gets to a point that is too high, then they put their hands up and they say, this is too much, maybe we should stop. But we know that if you refuse to recognize the worth of Palestinian life, the consequences are not just in Palestine. I heard a brother before me speaking about the hate crime that occurred in Chicago, where a young Muslim boy was killed by a landlord out of anti-Palestinian hate.
Yes.
We have to know that when our governor refuses to recognize that dignity, when our mayor calls people who take to the streets in support of Palestine terrorists and says that these are not their streets, these words are the green light to people across this city and across this country in understanding anyone associated with Palestine as less than them. And if they are less than them, then they are not deserving of any civil rights protections. And we have to be clear about that, especially as a Muslim community that has so many politicians come to us, come to our mosques, come to our events, asking for our votes. And then in a moment when we are at the brink of genocide, so many of those politicians don't have a single word to say to our community about the worth of our own lives. It's disgusting.
What about the politician you were talking about? Also, they came for fund, and the Muslim community, they raised the fund. So is there anything the Muslim community can ask them to make them accountable for in future?
I think every single person that has worked with a politician in our state, now is the time to call them and tell them, I need to see you get out in public and say that every civilian life must be protected, and so we need a ceasefire now. That should not be very difficult. It should not be difficult to say that you want to protect civilians. But for some reasons, when it comes to Palestinians, people are comfortable with it. And it's our job as New Yorkers to say that if you want to talk to me about representing my community, and if you want to talk to me about how you can be helpful, the first thing I need to hear you say is that you support a ceasefire. Because we know that if the United States government calls for a ceasefire, it will be very difficult for Israel to continue to kill Palestinians in the way they are now. But because of the silence of our politicians, because of the silence of our government, it is giving the green light to the Israeli military to do whatever it is they want to do in Gaza and also in the West Bank.
Yeah. So, what is your comment about the rules of our senator, who is one of your best allies and friend as well, Chuck Schumer?
You know, I've worked with Senator Chuck Schumer. I've worked with him on a number of issues, including fighting for debt relief for New York City taxi drivers.
Yes.
The issue at the core of my politics is fighting for working class people. So I will work with whomever in order to advance that issue. And in this moment, it is clear that Senator Schumer is on the wrong side of the issue. More than 2,200 Palestinians have been killed. And Senator Schumer's response has been to fly to Israel, to have a meeting with war cabinet ministers and Netanyahu, to support them at a time when they are calling for the elimination of Palestinians as a people. We have to be unafraid to call people out and ask them to publicly support a ceasefire, whether we've worked with them in the past or not. Now is the time to make it very explicit that we cannot allow for any leader, and Schumer is a leader in this state, he's a leader in this country. Every single person who has that title and that respect in this country needs to hear from every one of us that their silence is not acceptable. But with Senator Schumer, it's not just silence, it's unavowed, it's unrestricted support for the Israeli military. And that is not an acceptable position in this time.
Yeah, so as you know, the Palestinian issue, especially the Gaza issue, is not about the Muslim or any other religious issue. It is issue of the humanitarian issue, because lots of women, the children, you know, they were killed by the Israeli army and attack. So the people who are cross the line, someone could be a Muslim, someone could be atheist, someone could be agnostic, someone could be Christian, Jew. There's a lot of Jews there supporting as well the you know, the Palestinian issue. What is your appeal to the community, the people who think about the human rights, people who think about the humanity?
My appeal is look past what you hear on so many mainstream news channels. Thankfully, you don't hear it on this one. But when you turn on so many of the national news channels in this country, all you hear is the drumbeat for war. You hear senators like Lindsey Graham calling for a religious war. You hear senators like Marco Rubio talking about the necessity of flattening Gaza, making it into a parking lot. These are the moments when we have to be clear. This is not a religious war. There are not just Palestinian Muslims. As you said, there are Palestinian Christians, many of whom are right now in their church, sheltering for safety. This is a war about whether or not Palestinians deserve to live a life worthy of dignity. That is what this is about. There is an Israeli military that doesn't see these people as people. They see them as human animals. My appeal to everyone, and it does not matter if you're Muslim, if you're Christian, whomever you are, whatever God you believe in, or God that you don't even believe in. This is a moment for people of conscience. This is a moment to ask yourself, when the Iraq war was starting, what did you wish you had said? What did you wish you had done? Because we are on the precipice of something just like that. And all those years ago, when a tragedy of 9/11 was used as the justification to kill more than 400,000 to 500,000 people across the Middle East. We cannot let another tragedy here in the killing of Israeli civilians be used as the justification to kill thousands, if not tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands to come. We have to speak up. We have to make it clear. And I beg everyone who is watching this, now is the time to have courage. Now is the time to have confidence and demand a ceasefire from every political representative you see. They do not understand the importance of this moment. You do. And it's up to you to make that phone call. It's up to you to text that politician that you know and say, I need to see you call for a ceasefire, because if you're not calling for a ceasefire, you're supporting a genocide.
What about your rules to your constituent or the people who are thinking about the human disaster, to make them united and be their voice, to stand behind the the humanity, the people who are oppressed, the people who don't have the voice?
My appeal to my constituents, what I have been telling them, many of whom have been mourning what happened last Saturday, is that we are in this moment where people want to weaponize your mourning. They want to use it as a pretext to kill more civilians. And those same constituents of mine have reached out to tell me that they do not want their grief to be used to destroy families in Gaza. That they know that to suffer one war crime is not to then create the basis to inflict other war crimes. And right now it's war crimes that is happening in Gaza. The Israeli military is using white phosphorus. The Israeli military has bombed hospitals, killed journalists, bombed UN shelters, has told 1.1 million people in the north of Gaza to flee within 24 hours, and has said, if you do not flee, you will be murdered. And then for the many Palestinians who heard those instructions, got in a convoy, traveled on the road, Israel then bombed those people on the way as they were fleeing. There is no way out for people in this moment. We have to speak up for them.
Thank you so much, Mamdani, Zohran Mamdani, the assemblyman. Thank you so much for your time. Hold on one second. Let me see whether any of the panelists have any question. Anybody have any question to Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani?
No, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Shoaib, do you have any question?
I don't have any question. I just want to thank Mr. Zohran for standing so strong for justice and his sacrifice, personal sacrifice of being arrested. We all appreciate his stand for this justice.